March 17th, 1973. This is the most famous photograph ever taken of the Vietnam War. It is called Burst of Joy. A father, prisoner for 1,966 days, runs toward his children. They run toward him. The world cheered. But behind those smiles was a heartbreak so deep that even 52 years later, the people in this picture still cry when they see it. This is the day joy hit a broken heart. And tonight, for the first time in one place, you're going to hear the story they never told the newspapers. October 27th, 1967. The morning sky over North Vietnam burned with anti-aircraft fire. Major Robert L. Stirm, leading a flight of F-105 Thunder Chiefs on a bombing mission near Hanoi, felt the aircraft shudder. His plane had been hit. The F-105 Thunder Chief was one of the most dangerous aircraft to fly in Vietnam. Of the 833 produced, 382 would be lost during the war, nearly half. Bob Sturm's plane was about to become one of them. As he ejected from his crippled aircraft, enemy gunfire found him. 3 bullets struck him as he floated down through the hostile sky. He was captured the moment he hit the ground. Back home at Travis Air Force Base in California, Loretta Sturm would soon learn her husband was missing in action. Their 4 children, Lori, 14, Robert Jr., 12, Roger, 9, and Cynthia, 6, would have their lives frozen in time, waiting for a father who might never come home. One night before his final mission, Bob had written a letter. In it he said, "If anything happens, tell them Daddy tried to come home." He wouldn't see his children again for 1,966 days. The prison the Americans sarcastically called the Hanoi Hilton was built by French colonists in the 1890s. Now it held American pilots, and Bob Sturm was one of them. The torture was systematic. Mock executions, starvation, beatings. Bob's shoulders were dislocated when he was hung by his arms. His weight dropped to under 100 pounds. All the enamel on his teeth eroded away. 3 times he was marched before firing squads, certain each time that he would die, only to have it be a psychological ploy to break him for information. He never broke. In solitary confinement, the prisoners developed a lifeline, the tap code. Through concrete walls they could communicate, letter by letter, tapping out messages of hope and resistance. One day, through a shared wall, Bob heard tapping. It was John McCain, the Navy pilot who had been shot down just one day before Sturm. McCain, enduring his own torment in an adjacent cell, tapped out a joke through the wall. For the first time since his capture, Bob Sturm laughed. At Christmas 1969, alone in his cell during another stint in solitary confinement, Bob found a nail. Carefully, painstakingly, he carved 4 names into a tin cup: Lori, Robert, Roger, Cynthia. Meanwhile, back home, 11-year-old Lori saved her allowance. In a letter she sent to the prison, one Bob would receive months later, she wrote, "Dear Daddy, I'm saving my allowance to buy you a new watch when you come home." 1972, 5 years into captivity. The letter came through Red Cross channels. Bob Sturm received it in his cell and read it alone. It was from Loretta. The exact words have been recounted over the years, but the message was clear and devastating. Their marriage was over. She had changed, she wrote. She had been forced to grow up. Life was too short to be unhappy. She had seen other men. 3 of them had proposed marriage. She felt sure that in his heart, he knew they couldn't make it work. Bob Sturm folded the letter carefully. He placed it in his shirt pocket next to his heart, and never spoke of it to anyone in the prison. For 25 years afterward, he would not speak of it publicly either. Back in California, life had continued without him. His children were growing up. They were learning to call another man Dad. Loretta was moving on, and Bob in his cell had nothing but the memories of what had been and the knowledge of what would never be again. But the momentum to survive remained. He later said, "The momentum to stay alive for my family's sake was very strong. I had 4 neat children, and what I believed to be a neat wife that I wanted to get back to see. That's a strong incentive." Even knowing his marriage was over, even knowing what awaited him at home, Bob Sturm chose to survive. January 27, 1973. Paris Peace Accords. Signed after years of negotiations, the Paris Peace Accords formally ended American involvement in the Vietnam War. Part of the agreement was Operation Homecoming, the return of 591 American prisoners of war. March 14, 1973, Gia Lam Airport, Hanoi. The first group of POWs, Bob Stirm among them, walked to waiting C-141 Starlifter aircraft, nicknamed Hanoi taxis. As the plane lifted off Vietnamese soil, men who had endured years of torture began to weep. Some sang, "God bless America," off-key, sobbing, free. Clark Air Force Base, Philippines medical examinations. The first steak in more than 5 years. The first phone call home. Bob Stirm, now elevated to lieutenant colonel, prepared for the final leg of his journey. A chaplain handed him another letter. It was from Loretta, expanding on what she had written before. Just 3 days before he would land on American soil, Bob read the confirmation that his marriage was ending. "I can't begin to tell you how proud we are of you," Loretta had written. "The children and I never missed a night saying a prayer for your safe return. I would like to see you when you come home, but will understand if you would rather not. March 17th, 1973, Travis Air Force Base, California, 3 p.m. Almost 400 family members crowded the tarmac at Travis Air Force Base, even though only 20 POWs were aboard the arriving plane. 40 photographers jostled for position. Among them was Associated Press photographer Slava Sol Veter, 46 years old, who had spent much of the Vietnam era covering anti-war protests in San Francisco and Berkeley. The day was overcast, no shadows, perfect light for photography. 15-year-old Lori Stirm waited in the back seat of a station wagon on the tarmac, wearing her favorite fuchsia miniskirt. She felt like she was in a dream. 6 years. She hadn't seen her father in 6 years. She was 9 years old when he left. Now she was 15. Lieutenant Colonel Stirm stepped onto the tarmac in his crisp new uniform and gave a brief speech on behalf of all the returning POWs. Lori waited in the car. The minutes felt like hours. Then the car door opened. "I just wanted to get to Dad as fast as I could," Lori would later recall. She burst from the car and ran faster than her brothers and sister behind her, ran faster than her mother. Her arms stretched wide, her smile radiant, both feet leaving the ground in pure joy. She would later be called the Jumper, or the Leaper for that moment. Sal Veter's camera shutter clicked. Behind Lori came her brother Robert Jr., 14, arms wide. Then Roger, 12. Then little Cynthia, now 11. And finally, walking more slowly, wearing a blue and white pleated skirt and blue sweater with a large corsage, came Loretta. Veter rushed to a makeshift darkroom he'd set up in the ladies' bathroom on the base. United Press International photographers had commandeered the men's room. In less than half an hour, Veter and his colleague Walt Zabosky developed 6 remarkable images. Veter's pick was immediate. He titled it "Burst of Joy on the Spot" and sent it over the news wires. The photograph appeared in newspapers across the nation. It would win the 1974 Pulitzer Prize for feature photography. The world saw joy. Bob Stirm saw the rest of his life ending in that same second. Because the woman he loved was not running toward him the way his children were. She was there, yes. Smiling, yes. But everything had already changed. 3 days earlier, on the same day he was released from captivity, he had received her letter. The truth was in his pocket as he embraced his family. Years later, Stirm would say of the photograph, "I can't help but feel ambivalent about it. I was very pleased to see my children. I loved them all and still do, and I know they had a difficult time. But there was a lot to deal with." He would never display the photograph in his home. "In some ways, it's hypocritical," he said, "because my former wife had abandoned the marriage within a year or so after I was shot down." 1974. The divorce. The divorce was finalized within a year of Bob's return. Both Bob and Loretta remarried within 6 months of the divorce. Loretta was awarded custody of 2 of the 4 children, the family home, and 42.9% of Bob's military pension. This despite testimony presented to the court of her infidelity during his imprisonment. Bob never displayed bursts of joy in his home. Because of her, he said simply, pointing to Loretta in the photograph. But his children did. All four of them hung copies in places of honor in their homes. The years after Bob was promoted to colonel and retired from the Air Force in 1977 after 25 years of service. He worked as a corporate pilot and joined Ferry Steel Products, a business his grandfather had started in San Francisco. He married again and raised his four children, staying close to them throughout their lives. He remained in touch with his fellow POWs. He visited schools to tell his story. He kept that tin cup with his children's names carved into it. November 11th, 2025. Veterans Day, Colonel Robert L. Stirm passed away at an assisted living facility in Fairfield, California, just miles from Travis Air Force Base, where that famous photograph was taken 52 years earlier. He was 92 years old. Sal Vader, the photographer who captured that moment, is now 99 years old. Of the photograph, he said, "It was a hell of a moment, and in that moment you are grabbed. It was overwhelming." Lori Sturm Kitching still lives near Travis Air Force Base. The photograph still hangs in her front foyer. "Just the feelings of that and the intensity of the feeling will never leave me," she said. "It is so deep in my heart, and the joy and the relief that we had our dad back again. It was just truly a very moving reunion for our family, and that feeling has never left me. It's the same feeling every time I see that picture. And every day, how grateful I am that my father was one of the lucky ones and returned home." The photograph endures. It appears in history books, museums, and exhibitions as a symbol of the end of America's involvement in the Vietnam War. But it is more than a symbol. It is a moment, complex, painful, joyful, and heartbreaking all at once. It reminds us that not all war casualties occur on the battlefield. It reminds us that homecoming is not always what we imagine it will be. And it reminds us that behind every photograph, there is a story deeper and more human than any single image can ever capture. If you were alive on March 17th, 1973, you probably remember exactly where you were. In the comments, tell us your age that day and what this picture makes you feel, because some days are still waiting to come home, and some days are never really lost.